What if I told you that your emotions are not your enemy, but your undisciplined response to them is? There's a myth floating around one that says to be strong, you must feel nothing, that to be resilient, you must shut off the heart, that to survive in this world, you must become a machine, indifferent and detached. But let me tell you the truth. Strength isn't the absence of emotion. Strength is the mastery of emotion. Imagine standing in a storm. Winds rage, rain pours, thunder cracks. Most people panic, scream, run. But a few, the rare few, stand still, calm, focused, centered. They are not empty inside. They are anchored. That's the difference. To become emotionless does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop being controlled. It means your sadness no longer spirals into self-doubt. Your anger no longer hijacks your decisions. Your fear no longer decides your future. You are the same person, but stronger, clearer, more intentional. Emotions are data, not directions. You can feel them without following them. You can hear the noise without letting it drown your voice. You can experience pain without becoming it. You don't have to numb yourself to survive. You have to discipline yourself to thrive. Think of the greatest leaders, the strongest warriors, the most grounded humans. Were they emotionless? No. But they responded with wisdom, not impulse. They knew when to breathe instead of break, when to pause instead of panic, when to walk away instead of explode. That's not emptiness, that's emotional mastery. Now look at your life. How many decisions have been driven by unchecked emotions? How many moments lost to overreaction or underreaction? How many times have you regretted not what you felt, but what you did because of it? That ends today. You don't have to become cold. You have to become controlled. You don't have to become heartless. You have to become harder to shake. True power is not in becoming numb, it's in becoming untouchable where it matters, and deeply present where it counts. Emotions are one of the most powerful forces inside us. They drive decisions, shape relationships, and often determine how we experience the world. But there is a critical distinction that separates the mentally strong from the mentally scattered. It's who holds the reins. You can either own your emotions or be owned by them. Most people drift through life reacting to every emotional trigger without question. They get angry and lash out. They feel fear and retreat. They feel sadness and shut down. They don't pause. They don't process. They simply obey the emotion like a slave obeys a master. That is not strength. That is surrender. When you allow emotions to control you, you give up the driver's seat of your life to temporary feelings that come and go like weather patterns. You become inconsistent, unpredictable, and unanchored. But when you learn to control your emotions, you regain that seat of power. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them or pretending they don't exist. It means recognizing them, acknowledging their presence, and then choosing a response that aligns with your values and long-term goals. It means not letting a moment of frustration ruin a day of progress. It means not allowing fear to make your choices for you. It means knowing how to breathe through the rage, how to sit with the discomfort, how to recognize the emotion without acting on it immediately. It is one of the hardest skills to develop, but it's also one of the most liberating. The power lies in the pause, that sacred space between stimulus and response. In that moment, you get to decide what happens. Next, will you follow the emotional impulse, or will you lead with purpose? Will you let the feeling rule you, or will you rule over it? That split-second decision is where emotional mastery is born. It's where true confidence begins to grow. People often mistake emotional outbursts for honesty or passion. But honesty without control becomes recklessness. Passion without discipline becomes destruction. You were never meant to be a puppet on the strings of your feelings. You were meant to be a commander aware of your emotions, but never enslaved to them. This control isn't coldness. In fact, it's the opposite. It's compassion with wisdom. It's energy with direction. It's passion with restraint. When you learn to control your emotions, you give yourself the ability to think clearly under pressure, to make decisions with foresight instead of frustration, to protect your peace without hardening your heart. You become someone who doesn't just react to the world, but shapes it. You become the calm in the storm, the grounded in the chaos, the leader in the noise. You start building a life based on who you choose to be, not how you happen to feel in the moment. Every time you resist the emotional impulse and respond with intention, you get stronger. You train your nervous system. You reshape your identity. You become someone who is not swayed by the winds of emotion, but guided by the strength of purpose. Stillness is one of the most misunderstood strengths in human experience. To the untrained eye, stillness looks like weakness. It looks like inaction, like someone who isn't responding, someone who's frozen or indifferent. But in reality, stillness is often the highest form of power. It is what happens when a person has trained their mind to remain unshaken even when everything around them is falling apart. It is the calm center in the eye of the storm. It is not the absence of emotion or energy, it is the mastery of it. When you are still, you are not empty. You are full of awareness, full of observation, full of insight, but none of it is leaking out chaotically. You have learned to contain the fire without burning the room down. This level of control comes only through practice. In a world that constantly pressures people to react, to speak quickly, to jump to conclusions, stillness becomes a rebellion. The person who remains still in a high-pressure moment is not avoiding responsibility. They are absorbing information. They are calculating, thinking, centering themselves so that when they move with precision and power. Stillness is not about being passive, it is about choosing your moment. It is about understanding that action without clarity is wasted energy, while action with calm focus is unstoppable. The world often glorifies speed. People celebrate instant reactions, immediate feedback, quick judgments, but wisdom lives in the slow breath, in the quiet observation, in the deliberate pause before the response. There is a reason why the strongest leaders, the most respected warriors, and the most peaceful minds all have one thing in common: they are still under pressure. Their stillness is not accidental, it is trained. They have conditioned themselves to remain composed when others crumble. They don't let noise outside create chaos inside. They don't allow the opinions, crises, or behaviors of others to dictate how they feel internally. That is not detachment. That is discipline. Stillness creates space between you and the chaos of the world. It gives you the upper hand in moments where others are scrambling. It allows you to choose your next move based on values, not panic. It helps you preserve your energy, your clarity, and your peace. And from that grounded place, you can face anything not with brute force, but with quiet power, the kind of power that doesn't scream but is felt deeply, the kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows exactly what it's capable of. This strength, this internal silence, becomes a shield. It protects your focus. It guards your priorities. It keeps you from making emotional decisions that could derail your progress. When everyone else is rushing, reacting, and running in every direction, your stillness stands out. It becomes your signature, your advantage, your edge. You begin to operate not from pressure, but from principle. You don't move because you were pushed. You move because you were ready, and when you move from stillness, the impact is undeniable. Discipline is one of the most misunderstood forms of self-love. People often think of discipline as restriction, as a rigid system that removes joy or spontaneity from life. But true discipline isn't about punishment, it's about protection. It's about creating systems in your life that keep you aligned with who you want to become. It's about building walls around your peace, your progress, your values. And it's about saying no to the impulses, distractions, and emotional reactions that threaten to pull you away from your higher self. Discipline isn't about controlling everything around you. It's about mastering what happens inside you when you can't control anything else. Every time you feel an urge to lash out in anger and you choose to remain calm, that's discipline. Every time you want to give in to fear, but you choose courage instead, that's discipline. Every time you want to react emotionally, but you choose to pause, reflect, and respond with clarity, that's discipline. And each of those moments is an act of deep self-respect. Because discipline says, I care about myself enough to protect my growth. It says, I refuse to let momentary feelings sabotage long-term success. It's not a restriction of freedom, it is the creation of freedom. When you are disciplined, you are no longer a prisoner of emotion. You become someone who makes decisions based on purpose, not pressure. Most people lose control not because they're weak, but because they've never trained their mind to wait, to stop, to breathe, to evaluate. Emotional impulses are powerful. They are sudden and intense. They demand action. But discipline gives you the space to separate what you feel from what you do. It gives you the chance to break the cycle of anger followed by regret, fear followed by withdrawal, sadness followed by avoidance. Discipline creates new patterns, new reactions, new possibilities. It is the daily choice to respond with intention instead of reaction. And that daily choice builds identity. Every time you follow through on what you know is right instead of what's easy, you prove to yourself that you are in control. That belief starts to stack. It starts to become who you are. You begin to see yourself as strong, as capable, as calm, as focused. And that internal image influences everything, the way you walk into a room, the way you face setbacks, the way you speak to yourself when things go wrong. Discipline becomes your inner compass, your silent guide, your unshakable anchor. It's easy to think self. Love is just comfort and ease sleeping in, indulging your cravings, avoiding hard conversations, but real self. Love is sacrifice. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep. It's choosing the uncomfortable truth over the easy lie. It's holding yourself to a standard even when no one is watching, because you know you deserve better. And that kind of love, the kind that corrects, that trains, that demands more, is the love that transforms. There's a misconception that being emotionally sensitive makes you fragile, and that leading with emotion makes you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. But the reality is that emotional depth, when paired with control, is a superpower. Feeling deeply does not make you weak, it makes you human. It connects you to people, helps you understand pain, builds empathy, and sharpens your instincts. The key is not to shut down those emotions, but to master how they're channeled. When you feel deeply and lead fiercely, you become the kind of person others trust not because you're loud, but because you're real. You're not operating from a fake mask of perfection. You're grounded in self, awareness, and driven by values that people can feel in every word, every action, every decision. The greatest leaders are not robots. They don't move through life detached and emotionless. They are awake to the human experience. They feel heartbreak, disappointment, joy, and inspiration just like everyone else. But the difference is that they know how to translate those emotions into something greater than impulsive reactions. They don't let their feelings hijack their behavior. Instead, they turn pain into perspective, setbacks into strategy, and emotion into energy. That's the fierce leadership that only comes from people who have walked through fire and came out clearer, not colder. Being emotionally intelligent means having the awareness to understand your own emotions, and the maturity to understand the emotions of others. It means you can walk into a room and sense the tension. You can hear the words unspoken. You can lead with compassion without becoming a doormat, because emotional strength isn't about agreeing with everyone or trying to make everyone happy. It's about making the hard decisions with a soft heart. It's about delivering the truth with empathy, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about standing firm in your convictions while understanding the fears and perspectives of the people around you. That's not weakness, that's rare and courageous leadership. When you lead from this space, you begin to inspire rather than command. People don't just follow your orders, they follow your example. They feel seen, heard, and understood. And in a world that often feels cold and transactional, being someone who leads with warmth, clarity, and strength is revolutionary. You become the balance that others are craving, someone who listens deeply and acts boldly, someone who understands pain but doesn't stay stuck in it, someone who connects emotionally but doesn't lose themselves in the emotions of others. Emotional depth also fuels passion. It gives you a reason to fight for your dreams, a reason to care about your mission, a reason to keep going when things get tough. When you're connected to your purpose on an emotional level, you don't need external motivation to keep showing up. You're driven from within, powered by something real. That authenticity radiates. It creates loyalty. It creates momentum. It becomes the difference between burnout and resilience, between quitting and evolving, between silence and powerful influence. Emotional strength is not something you're born with, it's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice. It's forged in the moments when life doesn't go your way, when everything inside you is screaming to collapse, react, or run, and yet you choose to stay centered. That's where mental resilience is born. Every time you face an emotional storm and hold your ground, you teach your nervous system that you're in control. You teach your mind that not every emotion needs a reaction. You show yourself that you can feel pain, frustration, fear, and sadness and still move forward. That is how emotional strength becomes the foundation of resilience. Most people think resilience means pushing through without feeling anything. But true resilience isn't numbness. It's being fully aware of your emotions and still choosing not to be owned by them. It's looking pain in the face and saying you can visit, but you don't get to stay. It's waking up after failure and reminding yourself that your worth was never tied to that one moment. It's the deep, unshakable understanding that emotions are messengers, not masters, and that you are the one who decides what to do with them. Message, this kind of emotional strength isn't developed during the easy times. It's developed when the pressure is on, when things fall apart, when the people around you panic and spiral, and you choose to breathe, to assess, to respond with intention instead of impulse. Emotional strength means you don't escalate conflict just because you're angry. You don't abandon goals just because you're tired. You don't sabotage progress just because your mind is flooded with doubt. You recognize that emotions are temporary visitors, but your decisions create permanent outcomes. Mental resilience is the result of emotional training, and that training is in the daily discipline of your reactions. When someone disrespects you, you train yourself not to take it personally. When you feel overwhelmed, you remind yourself that stress is not a reason to shut down. When life throws curveballs, you reframe the situation and focus on what you can control. This constant repetition of emotional discipline becomes second nature. It becomes your armor, not a cold, hard shell, but a protective, flexible strength that allows you to keep going when most people would break. The beauty of emotional strength is that it compounds over time. Each time you choose growth over comfort, self-awareness over ego, patience over reaction, you reinforce a version of yourself that can't be easily shaken. You start to trust yourself in chaos. You start to rely on your own inner compass rather than external validation, and that inner confidence becomes your anchor. While others search for something to cling to, you already have it within you, built through every decision where you didn't give in to emotional chaos. Every time you stood tall in the face of fear. Every moment you held your integrity when it would have been easier to fold. You were never meant to live a life of emotional survival, just getting through the day, dodging triggers, suppressing pain, and pretending you're okay. That's not living, that's coping. And while there's nothing wrong with surviving, the human spirit was built for more than that. You were designed to thrive, to rise above your instincts, to learn, to adapt, to master your emotional landscape so that it no longer holds you hostage. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you're flawless or unaffected. It means you no longer let every high and low dictate who you are. It means you've stopped letting emotions lead you into decisions that break you down or trap you in cycles of regret. Instead, you rise above the immediate pull and learn to navigate life with direction, with strategy, with purpose. Most people spend their lives reacting. They react to people's opinions, to disappointing outcomes, to fear, to insecurity. They live in a cycle of emotional turbulence, where a single word can ruin their day and one setback can derail their goals. But thriving starts when you decide that your emotional state is no longer up for negotiation. When you decide that your peace, your focus, your mission, these are things you protect. You start shifting from reaction to creation. You stop being pulled by circumstances and start creating responses rooted in clarity. You stop being someone who gets lost in the moment and start becoming someone who... Asterisk uses asterisk the moment to grow stronger. Thriving emotionally means reclaiming your power. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that no storm, no critic, no failure can shake that foundation. It's understanding your emotional patterns, not to judge them, but to rewire them. When fear shows up, you no longer cower, you question it. When doubt whispers, you confront it. When sadness arrives, you don't sink. You listen, reflect, and move. This isn't denial. This is transformation. It's about choosing emotional responsibility over emotional slavery. It's the mindset that says, I may feel pain, but I am not my pain. I may feel anxiety, but I am not controlled by it. I may feel anger, but I choose not to spread it. When you live in this state, everything changes. Your relationships become stronger because you don't bring emotional volatility into them. Your career accelerates because you lead with stability. Your dreams become more attainable because you stop self-sabotaging at the first sign of discomfort. You stop waiting for life to get easier or for people to be kinder or for the world to align perfectly. Instead, you align asterisk yourself asterisk internally, emotionally, mentally. You wake up each day not hoping for peace, but asterisk carrying it within you. Asterisk, and when challenges arise, you don't panic. You pause, you process, you push forward with intention, not desperation. This kind of emotional thriving doesn't make you invincible. It makes you adaptable. It allows you to face loss without losing yourself. It allows you to embrace love without fear of dependency. It allows you to take risks without being paralyzed by the fear of failure. You step into your days with conviction, with courage, with clarity, not because life has gotten easier, but because you've grown stronger.